I'm here today at the Ashburton Aviation Museum, located in the South Island of New Zealand, just on the outskirts of the town of Ashburton. I'm here inside one of the helicopters that they have on site with a bunch of other aircraft, and when you look at helicopters in particular, it's easy to believe that something like this couldn't get off the ground. I mean, look at it, all these blades everywhere. It doesn't look like something that can lift off, but all of us have seen one do it, and so we know that they can. Can you imagine how it must have been for people who had never seen someone fly? I'm thinking back to the early 1900s. It was 1903 and December 17. Wilbur and Orville Wright, the Wright brothers, you may have heard of them. They made their very first powered flight on a windswept beach in North Carolina. It was called Kitty Hawk. There on that beach that day, these brothers, I think it was Orville who got off the ground first, about 20 feet, 12 seconds, and it is today considered the first powered flight. They had a few more attempts that day. Wilbur got off the ground as well, and his flight went for about 59 seconds, and he flew over 800 feet that day. It was an amazing thing. The brothers, however, didn't start that day. Back in the late 1800s, the brothers decided that they wanted to fly, and so many attempts were made gliding. Over 700 successful flights were made on that beach. The beach was selected because of its strong winds, its constant winds that were needed for the brothers to get the lift for their aircraft. The brothers actually owned a bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, and it was there from that bicycle shop that they built these flying craft, something that no one had ever seen before. They decided after they had successfully been gliding that they now wanted to do powered flight and needed to find a car engine or an engine of any kind that was light enough to put into their aircraft. But they couldn't find one. So what did they do? They made their very own. They designed it, put it into the aircraft, and because of their ingenuity and because they kept just going and going and going, these two brothers were able to change the course of history. Now, I said talking about doubt before. Maybe you doubt that. You say, no, it wasn't the Wright brothers who were the first to fly. It was Richard Pearce from New Zealand. He was the first one to do it. Absolutely. I hear that Brazil, Antonio Santos Dumont, he's another man who they claim was the first. The Germans, they say, no, it was Whitehead. He was the one. Everyone, each to their own, I guess. Everyone has the claim, but I guess whether or not the Wright brothers were the first, they were among the first. What's interesting though about the Wright brothers' flight is not if they were the first or not, but the response of people to hearing the news that the brothers were able to fly. The father of a man who rented the two brothers the bike shop heard the news, and he's famously quoted as saying, well, I don't discount it. If you say you flew, then you probably did, but it was probably some very strong winds. The brothers actually informed all of the newspapers in town and even nationally that they were going to be doing this. But amazingly enough, no one really turned up. Only one local paper covered the event at all. And you might wonder, why would such an amazing event, why would something so phenomenal, this first flying, why would no one be interested in it? Well, it's interesting when you study the history that at the time, it was widely reported that flight was impossible. Some people had famously said, scientists at the time, they said that flying would happen about the same time that perpetual motion was discovered. In national newspapers, articles had been written. Well-known scientists had proclaimed that it just wasn't possible. They had written in newspapers and made it very clear that flight just couldn't happen. So what would you do if you were a newspaper editor? All these renowned scientists have published articles in your paper saying that flight's impossible, and here come two brothers who own a bicycle shop in a little town, and they say, we flew. It'd be hard to believe, but they did fly. And because they flew, today, things like this, machines like this, are now possible, and we all know that it's possible as well. It's very easy to doubt when the thing that we want to believe in we haven't seen or haven't had experience with. The question I want to look at today is, what do we do with our doubts regarding God? Is it okay to doubt? I mean, we all have doubts, right? We might doubt that God cares. We might doubt that God is interested. We might doubt that God can make any difference in our life. Maybe we even doubt that God exists. Maybe we've wondered, is God even there? Are these thoughts okay? Is it okay to doubt? And when we do, what do we do with those thoughts? These are excellent questions. And our message today, what I want to actually acknowledge is this. Doubt is totally normal. In fact, it's human. If you don't doubt, there could be something wrong. A very famous American philosopher, his name was Richard Rorty. Some consider him one of the great philosophers of the 20th century. He had this to say regarding doubt in our lives. Let me read this with you now. If anyone really believed that the worth of a theory depends on its philosophical grounding, then indeed they would be dubious about physics or democracy until relativism in respect to philosophical theories had been overcome. Fortunately, almost nobody believes anything of the sort. What Richard Rorty has just said is that any philosophy, any theory, can't be proven absolutely and totally without there being a little bit of doubt. Many philosophers point to the fact that so many areas of life, things that you would take for certain, perhaps ethical things like respect for human life, or social ideas like democracy, or religious ideas like Christianity, no matter which field you go into, there will always be a small room for doubt. Maybe only tiny, but doubt can never be totally removed. It's amazing because so many of these ideas we would think they're self-evident, that they're things that can't be disproven in any way. But there will always exist a measure of doubt in everything. A French historian and philosopher, now pardon my French, his name was Alexis de Tocqueville. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry. He had this to say about doubt in terms of ideas. There is no philosopher in the world so great, but she believes a million things on the faith of other people and accepts a great many more truths than she demonstrates. As Christians or people who want to believe in God, we might have a view that doubt is something that only we deal with. But as you're watching today, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, you might be Jewish, you might be Islamic, you might be no believer at all. It doesn't matter what your background is today. All of us, we all have to deal with doubts. Doubts is a human condition. It doesn't belong to any one group. What do we do with doubts though? How should we feel about them? Well, the first thing I want to say about doubts today is that doubting is honest. Doubting admits that in our mind, as we're thinking about some of these ideas, even ideas that are precious to us, that we're ready to wrestle, we're ready to ask questions. Because what does it say about us if we're ready to accept things and never question them, never investigate them, never make sure that those things are true? That's what doubt allows us to do. Doubt asks questions that can sometimes push us forward. However, when it comes to knowing completely what we believe in, especially when it comes to God, the Bible has a number of very interesting things to say. It reminds us again and again that when it comes to our faith, yes, there is concrete evidence upon which it's built, but there's also this area of unknown. The Bible calls that faith. Look at what it says, for example, in Hebrews 11:1. You may have heard of this. It's famously called the faith chapter. Listen to what it says. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Likewise, look what it says in Hebrews 11:6. And without faith it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. Again, we read in Ephesians 2:8-9, for by grace you've been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that anyone may boast. Finally, we read in 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith, not by sight. What we've just read here, and the Bible makes it really clear, is that there is a faith element to all this. There is a part of it. In fact, it's almost crucial that we have faith as part of our belief system. Because as we reach out in faith, we reach beyond ourselves, we reach beyond what we can see. And let's face it, life in so many aspects has this faith element. But it's not blind faith. It's not faith that doesn't rest on something concrete. It's not faith that we just jump out hoping that we're going to land safely. It's faith that's built on good evidence. It's faith that's built on something solid. In his book, The Sunnier Side of Doubt, Alistair McGrath has this to say, quoting also famous Christian author C.S. Lewis in the process. Listen to what he says in his book. The big questions concern the reliability of its historical foundations, its internal consistency, its rationality, its power to convert, and its relevance to human existence. As C.S. Lewis stressed in Mere Christianity, Christianity has exceptionally fine credentials on all counts. Look into them. You can totally commit yourself to the gospel in full confidence as a powerful, credible, and profoundly satisfying answer to the mystery of human existence. Faith is basically the resolve to live our lives on the assumption that certain things are true and trustworthy in the confident assurance that they are true and trustworthy, and that one day we shall know with absolute certainty that they are true and trustworthy. So what are we trying to say today? Well, I know I've been quoting a lot today, but I love that these great minds have thought these ideas even before I have. And one more time today, I'd love to quote. It's from that little book that we keep mentioning in this series, Steps to Christ, where the author has this to say about doubt in our lives. God has never removed the possibility of doubt. Our faith must rest upon evidence, not demonstration. Those who wish to doubt will have opportunity, while those who really desire to know the truth will find plenty of evidence on which to rest their faith. What I want you to know today, if you're watching, is that if you have doubts, that's okay. But more than that, that if others are causing you to doubt, if other people are saying to you, you can't believe, you can't have faith, that you need to remember that all of us have doubts, even those people who don't. There's doubts in that as well. Doubt is common to us all. As long as the thing that we're putting our faith in has a strong grounding, then living your life with a measure of faith is not wrong. In fact, it's totally human. That's that side of it though. But there's another side too. And this is sometimes the harder side. Maybe you do want to believe, maybe you read what the Bible says and you see God there, but then it's your life that causes you to doubt. Things in your life are not going the way that you expected. You want God to lead you in a certain way, but it seems hard and it seems like God doesn't care and He's not there. And those doubts and your experiences in your life, those are the things that make you want to pull back and not believe. One of the things that I love about the Bible, and one of the reasons that I see it as such a true book, is that the Bible is not a sanitized book. It's not a book that tries to hide things. So many of the stories of the Bible's main heroes show them and tell them doing terrible things. In fact, there's a Psalm, Psalm 88, that I'd love to share with you now. Because in this psalm, we see so much truth. It doesn't hide from the human condition. It dives deep into it. O Lord, God of my salvation, I cry out day and night before you. Let my prayer come before you. Incline your ear to my cry. For my soul is full of troubles, and my life draws near to Sheol. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am a man who has no strength. Like one set loose among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, like those who you remember no more, for they are cut off from your hand. You have put me in the depths of the pit, in the regions dark and deep. Your wrath lies heavy upon me, and you overwhelm me with all your waves. You have caused my companions to shun me. You have made me a horror to them. I am shut in so that I cannot escape. My eyes grow dim through sorrow. Every day I call upon you, O Lord. I spread out my hands to you. Do you work wonders for the dead? Do the departed rise up to praise you? Is your steadfast love declared in the grave, or your faithfulness in Abaddon? Are your wonders known in the darkness, or your righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? But I, O Lord, cry to you. In the morning, my prayer comes before you. O Lord, why do you cast my soul away? Why do you hide your face from me? Afflicted and close to death from my youth up, I suffer your terrors. I am helpless. Your wrath has swept over me. Your dreadful assaults destroy me. They surround me like a flood all day long. They close in on me together. You have caused my beloved and my friend to shun me. My companions have become darkness. So what have we just read here in Psalms 88? Well, do you see the anguish of the author, of the one who's writing this? They're in agony. They're crying out to God. They feel like God has totally abandoned them. They feel like they are left, whether it's a he or she. We think that this was actually one of the king's chief psalm writers historically. Someone who was meant to write songs of praise, someone who did write songs of praise about God, and that gives us hope. But in this moment of their life, at that very time, hope felt far away. They felt like God was totally far, totally distant. Feel free to call this psalm a faith crisis. This is a time in their life where God is far. And maybe if you had a friend like this, maybe you knew someone, you would say, well, this person clearly just didn't stay close enough to God. They need to do more Bible study. They need to pray more. They need to get their thinking right. And sometimes when people share moments like this in their life to us, we struggle. We think that they might be doing something wrong. But Psalms 88 has sometimes been called a mirror of the soul. What Psalms 88 tells us, and the fact that it's made it into the Bible, is evidence that Psalms 88 can be part of our Christian experience. It can be part of faith. It can be part of believing. There's moments when we struggle because all of the elements come together in a way that just make it really hard to hold on. It should comfort us that someone in the Bible had this experience, because if we're having it as well, it means that there's nothing wrong with us. It means we're just going through a tough time. Another psalm that I love is Psalm 73, a psalm of Asaph. In this particular psalm, the psalmist is writing, and he's got a different conundrum. He's saying that I'm trying to live my life, God, by your ways. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to come to you, be a worshiper of you. And yet people who don't follow you, people who even speak ill of you, people who turn their face to you willingly, they seem to be doing great. They seem to be prospering. They seem to be winning in life. And the psalmist struggles with this inconsistency that he sees in the world. How can it be that someone does the wrong thing and gets rewarded for it? Maybe you felt like that as well. Maybe you turn on the news or get onto social media, and it feels like the people who are selling out, who are morally bankrupt, who tell lies and who cheat, and who go about things completely the wrong way, it looks like they're doing so well in life. And like the psalmist in Psalm 73, you go, what's the point? Why should I live my life in this way? Why should I do this? It feels like I just can't win by doing it. You know, I know a lot of people who've been raised in the Christian faith, and as they've been raised, they've been taught that it's not right to doubt. You need to squash those feelings. You need to put them aside. Now, it's true that doubt can be used in a bad way. It can turn into unbelief. It can turn into a thing that can completely destroy our belief system. But sometimes squashing it can do the same. Some people, they start to have questions, and so they push them down, and they are only surrounded by other people who believe. But at some point in your life, like most of us, we have to step out of our family circles or our communities, and we go out into the big wide world. And suddenly we encounter other ideas. We discover that there are people who don't think like us or don't see the world like us. And some of the very questions that we have raised but squashed, some of the doubts that we've had but never done anything with, these same doubts are raised by others around us who see the world differently. And suddenly, because we've never, ever taken the opportunity to look into our doubts, never answered the questions that we have, we find ourselves in a place where those doubts overtake us, and suddenly we lose faith altogether. That's why squashing doubt, that's why just trying to get rid of it is never a good idea. You know, faith, I've heard it said, is not a castle that we live in. It's not something that we should shut ourselves up into, but it's a journey that we go on. And when we view faith in that way, we have an opportunity. And when we view doubt that way, we have this chance for our faith to not only stay, but to be strengthened as well. In fact, there's 3 things that I've learned about doubt and ways in which we can use it to actually strengthen and grow in our faith. Before we share these 3 things though, I'd love to share a verse that comes from the book of James though, which reminds us that if doubt's not dealt with right, it can leave us in a really unstable position. We find this in James 1, starting in verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person might not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. The book of James here is describing a kind of doubt that's destructive, a doubt that makes us unstable in our faith. It's the kind of doubt that we read about in Genesis 3, that very first story of the Bible. God has said something really clear, and yet people doubted that it was true, and it resulted in unbelief. Thomas famously doubted in the scriptures, and yet his unbelief, or his doubt rather, turned into faith. Doubt can be transformed if we'll let it. I mentioned 3 things before, 3 ways in which doubt can be used to strengthen our faith. I'd like to share them with you now. And the first way in which doubt can be used is that doubt can deepen the reasons for our faith. What do I mean by that? Well, Christianity is built on not just faith, but it's built on history. It's built on reason. It's built on evidence. There were witnesses to this. It's built on a bunch of concrete things that we can actually build from and that are true. But perhaps some of us have never built our faith on those concrete things. Maybe we've built our faith on the fact that we were raised in it, or because someone told us that it's so, or that we've heard this or that, and we've pieced together a reason for our faith that's not actually that stable and that strong. This is what James is talking about. When our faith is not built on something solid, it's easy for it to be rocked. It can go back and forward. And when we doubt, it can actually be an opportunity for us to build our faith not on these moving things, but on the solid things that it actually does offer us. That's the first way in which doubt can be useful. The second way is that doubt can actually help us discover new things. Perhaps someone's asked you a question like, well, why do you believe that? How do you know the Bible is true? How do you know it hasn't been changed? How do you know God loves you? How do you know that He's there? How do you know that the world didn't just come into existence on its own? What evidences are there for the fact that it's created? Questions like this can actually drive us to investigate. They can drive us to explore. Many years ago, I read a book by Lee Strobel, A Case for Christ. He was a journalist. He actually didn't believe in the Bible at all. And he said, you know what? And as a journalist, I've been trained to find why things are true or not. And so he decided to investigate. Amazingly, his investigation actually had the opposite effect of what he thought it would have. And in the end, he became a Christian because the answers that he was looking for, the things that he was trying to disprove, the evidence stacked up and he couldn't deny it anymore. And that kind of leads to the third point, that when we doubt, it can actually remove some errors in our thinking. The third thing it does, and this is perhaps one of the best, is that for those of us who do believe, as we're constructing our faith, it roots out those parts of our faith where we may have made a mistake. No one should claim that they have it all together. No one should claim that they have all truth. All of us are on a journey. And as we construct our faith, we get bits and pieces. And some of those pieces are totally wrong. Some of those pieces are wrong to a degree. What doubt does is it helps us orientate our faith. It helps us to get those degrees in the right angle. It helps us to question things in a way that means that we pull our faith together as something that is true and something that is rational and something that is real. So what can we do practically? Well, why not ask God to help you with your doubts? Reach out to Him, read the scriptures, investigate, let them give you the answers. Perhaps there's someone you know who you trust and get their advice. Reach out to them as well. But here's the thing I love most of all. Look into the Bible and look at all the people who doubted, the Thomases, the Gideons, the Jobs, the Davids, the Moseses. Character after character doubted, and yet God was able to still grow them. I love what Jesus said to Thomas in John 20:27. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." If you've ever doubted, I hope what we've looked at today has been an encouragement to you. Doubt can lead us away. It can mean that we're drawn far from God. It could even make us give up our faith, but it doesn't have to. If we'll stick with the doubt, if we'll work through the doubt, if we won't allow it to derail us completely, doubt could actually lead us to a place and to an experience that's deeper and richer than if we hadn't gone through it before. I love the story of an inexperienced pilot, a new pilot, who was flying their plane in on a cloudy day. They were flying on instruments only, and they were getting panicky. And the tower could sense the panic and said to the inexperienced pilot, "Hey, calm down. You just listen to our instructions and we'll worry about the obstructions." I love that story because in it we hear the tower talking to the pilot and saying, "Hey, don't worry, we've got you. We know that you've got some doubts, but if you will just listen to our voice, we'll guide you through and you're gonna land safely in the end." Can I pray for you today? Father, we thank you for the evidences upon which we can place our faith. Thank you that you've given us enough to believe. And yet, Lord, when it comes to our doubts, help us to trust that they don't have to derail us, Lord, but we can move through them. And by them, you can take us to a deeper place with you. We thank you for this. And again, we thank you for Jesus. And we ask all these things today. In his name, amen. We'd love to offer you a resource that lets you dig in deeper to who Jesus is and why so many people have given their lives and who they follow him. Our free offer today is the Walking with Jesus guides. In these guides, we hope to offer some answers to the questions that you have and to dig a little bit deeper into Jesus and who he is. The topics include God's love for man, forgiveness, what it looks like to let go of things in our past that hold us back, and how to live life with God every day, and other questions as well. To receive this free offer, please visit our website, truthlink.tv/Jesus, or call us on 1300 300 389 and ask for the Walking with Jesus free offer.